Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is Oxtail Osso Buco. Today we'll be preparing a variation on the Italian classic dish Osso Buco. Now traditionally this dish is made with veal shank that's cross-cut. Today we're going to be making it with oxtail, which comes from the tail end of a cow. So it looks kind of similar to a veal shank. It's got the bone running through the center and it's cross-cut, but it is a different piece of meat entirely. We're utilizing this cut of meat today because it's what's accessible to us, and I think that that's probably what we got to do in most cases. You have to cook what's accessible to you. But whether you're using veal or you're using oxtail, it doesn't matter. In the end, we're going to have an incredibly tender piece of meat that's been braised down in a sauce of tomatoes and vegetables and wine. It's going to be incredible. So let's jump right in by searing off our oxtail. So here we have 4.5 pounds of our oxtail. We have some larger pieces, which this is really where we're gonna get our meat from. You see they've got the bone running through the center there. A lot of fat in these. They're gonna take a long time to braise to really break down. Over here we have the smaller end of the tail. These will have some little chunks of meat on them, but for the most part, we're just gonna throw these in the pot for the extra flavor. While we're not doing a traditional version of this dish today, we are going to take some of those really fantastic techniques that make the dish so great and utilize those. So the thing we need to do with our oxtails is we need to get them dredged in a little bit of flour and seared off in our Dutch oven. So that puts a really nice crust on the outside of the oxtail, also gives us a really nice fond to start off all of our vegetables and all of that flavor profile that's going to come together in the end for the braise inside the Dutch oven. Before we get the flour on here, we're going to season the surface with just a little bit of smoked salt and some fresh cracked black pepper. We'll just kind of press this into the meat and then flip these over and do the same thing to the other side, and then we'll hit it with the flour. And we'll do that again. Pretty basic, but a really nice place to start. Now you'll want to have a large Dutch oven that's nice and hot for searing these off, and I'm going to add some clarified butter to the Dutch oven. And then over here we're going to take our oxtail, just dredge it in that flour, and then come down in the hot butter. And when we're doing this, we're going to make sure that we're working in batches so that we get a good sear. If you put these too close or crowd them, you're just going to start to cook the meat without getting any real browning done. All right, so we'll take a look at this. Great browning going on, nice sear. That's what we're looking for, so we're going to flip that over and get the other side. These ones on the outside, they're coming along as well. So that's the Maillard reaction that's happening right there when that meat starts to brown, and it adds so much flavor to a dish. All right, so that's looking good. These are all coming along, so we're gonna start to rotate these out for the ones that we haven't seared yet. In the meantime, these can just go back onto that sheet pan. The last of the oxtail are being pulled out of the Dutch oven now. We're gonna continue to cook these in the braise later on, but for now, we'll set them aside and prep the veggies. So the base of this dish, like so many other dishes, is a mirepoix, which is essentially 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot and 1 part celery. I've also recently learned that this is called sometimes a battuto in Italian. If you guys have a grandmother that's Italian, maybe ask her about that and make sure I got that right. So for the onions, we're just gonna go for a medium dice. In the end, we're not actually going to be serving any of these items. They're just going to melt into the braise. So the good news is you don't have to be super pretty with your cuts, but it does help if they're all relatively the same size. Go ahead and get these carrots peeled, and then we'll do a dice on them as well. And then we've got our celery, which I've already cleaned up a bit here. So we're just gonna knock these down. Boom. 2 parts onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery. So we've got our pot where we seared off the oxtail. We're gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to that, and then our mirepoix. So let's just give that a stir. We'll start to scrape up some of those browned bits from the bottom. And we just want to cook these down until softened slightly, about 10 minutes or so. I'm also going to throw in some cloves of garlic. Since we're doing a long braise time, I'm not going to bother to chop down the garlic. I will just crush these up and throw them in. Honestly, if you didn't want to, you don't even have to peel the skins at this point because, again, we're not going to be eating this in the end. Well, we've got our onions translucent. Everything is softening up here. We're really starting to get all that fond off the bottom now. What I want to do next here is go ahead and throw in some more aromatics. So we're going to add some parsley. We've got some fresh thyme and 1 bay leaf. So we're going to mix those in. Now, if I was fishing these out later, I would probably tie them up to make it a little bit easier, but we're not going to need to do that as we're going to strain off all of our solids in the end. One more thing we're going to throw in here is a little bit of our Tuscan steak seasoning. This stuff is fantastic on beef and features some other flavors that you might consider throwing in anyway, like rosemary and some of that chili flake right there that's going to add just a touch of heat. So let's roll that temperature up because the next thing we're going to do is add some wine that we want to reduce down. All right, so you're looking for a white wine in this dish. And we're probably going to add about 2 cups here, which will leave you about 1 cup of wine to sip on while you're cooking your osso buco. All right, so we're bringing that up to a simmer now. We're going to let that reduce down just slightly, and then we'll get our tomatoes in the pot as well. All right, so no need to let this reduce all the way. It's going to continue to reduce while we're braising. The next thing that we're going to add are our San Marzano tomatoes. These are fantastic product by Chow out of Italy, obviously San Marzano, DOP certified. The whole tomatoes, I'm going to break them up a little bit, but honestly, these things are just going to fall apart over a couple hours of braising, so we don't need to worry about mashing those up too much right now. So that's essentially our flavor base. At this point, I'd like to get our oxtail into that braise, and we'll see how much liquid we have here once we get these all nestled in. And if we need to, we might just top this off with a little bit of beef stock. This 4.5 pounds is going to be just about perfect. So that I feel good about. Our liquids are already warm. You can see it's bubbling a bit. We could add just a little bit of beef stock, but I think I'm going to wait. So at this point, we're just going to let it simmer away. We're going to transfer this over to the smoker. We're going to leave it uncovered. That way it can pick up some of that smoke as it's cooking. We're going to be cooking at about 350, so it's not low and slow, but enough that we can get a little bit of color and a little bit of smoke incorporated on that top layer there. Now what's going to happen over the next couple hours is that meat's going to start to break down. The liquid level is going to start to decrease as well as it evaporates. If we need to, we can always add a little bit of beef stock, but we're just going to be mindful of that. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to pay attention to what's going on. For now, let's get it on the smoker and let it do its work. All right, so we'll go right there, right in the center, close this thing up, and I probably won't even look at it for the first hour. Hey guys, we're about an hour and a half into the cook now. There's not much to report on as everything's just kind of rolling away as it should, but I thought I'd give you a quick peek just so you can see how it's progressing. So as you can see, we're bubbling away. That liquid level has definitely dropped a little bit, but we still have plenty to where our oxtail are mostly covered, and that's how we want it. And then of course on top, we've got some really great color forming here. That's just the color coming off the smoke as it passes over everything and moves its way through the pit. So not much else to show here. I guess we could go ahead and turn these over and get some even browning on them, but otherwise we're just gonna let this continue to braise and break down that meat. We're about 3 hours into the cook now. The beef is getting really tender. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna snatch those little oxtails out of the braising liquid. We're gonna set them aside in this little pan off to the side. I wanna strain off the liquid so that we can get rid of the solids that are in there. And then we're just gonna reduce the braising liquid down a little bit over the next half hour while we make some polenta for a creamy base to set our oxtail on, and then we'll bring it all together. We check out the color going on there. Bright red and brown all around those edges. And this stuff is just getting really tender now. You can see how it's separated from those bones. Keep an eye out for any of those little nuggets blending in with the veggies. Oh, there we go. Look at that right there. That looks like a fantastic bite, man. So soft and juicy. All right. Let's get this strained off. Just need like a fork or something to help work that liquid through. We really want to utilize that liquid that we've got hung up in those veggies. And we ended up with even less liquid than I kind of expected out of here, which is fine. We didn't add any broth throughout the cooking process, so maybe I should have expected that. But because of that, I think what I want to do is I'm just going to pour all of this liquid back over the beef here, and we'll just let this sit warm in the grill while we make our polenta. Now the polenta we're going to be making today is a very creamy polenta. It's a fantastic base for a juicy braised beef like this. It's essentially going to create a nice solid bed where all those juices can fall off of that oxtail, and then you scoop it up all together and get just one incredible bite that warms your soul. We're going to keep it really simple with the creamy polenta today. We're bringing 4 cups of water up to a simmer to start things off. Nothing tricky here. Now once you have that simmer going, you're going to start adding your polenta in slowly, whisking the whole time to make sure that we don't get any clumps. This polenta, we have 1 cup of polenta to our 8 cups of water. Sorry, 4 cups of water, my bad. Sounded a little crazy. So this polenta is essentially just a cornmeal. And the way we're preparing is very similar to how the grits are made down south. But of course this would be with a yellow corn rather than a white corn. And the consistency is a bit thicker, more coarse. So pretty quickly here it's going to start soaking up that water. Our bubbles will get larger and larger, and as they do, we're going to turn this down so that it's not popping all over the place. So now over medium-low heat, we should have some bubbles, not get too violent. Let's go a little bit lower. But this is all there is to it at this point. We're just going to let it cook down. We're going to let the corn absorb the water. It should start to get tender here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And in that time, we're going to be stirring occasionally to prevent any scorching or sticking. All right, guys, so this has really gotten nice and tender. It took about 15 minutes, pretty quick with a small batch like this one. There's not much flavor to it at this point. We used water. We didn't bother going with stock or something like that because I don't want to overwhelm the final dish. But there's not much flavor going on, so we do need to help it out a little bit. Now, Parmesan cheese is a great way to add flavor and a bit of salt to it. And you can do as much or as little as you like. We'll say we're going to do about half a cup, half to 3/4 of a cup of this Parmesan cheese. And we're just going to work that right in there. A little bit more. You could use any cheese you like. Another great option would be like that pecorino that we've used on our prime rib. That would also be a fantastic option. Also going to throw in here a couple pats of butter, so 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We'll let those melt down and then we'll get a taste and adjust with salt if we need to. All right, so that needs quite a bit more salt. We're gonna add some of our hickory smoked salt here. Like a lot of starchy dishes, they can handle quite a bit of salt. And then while we're at it, we'll just add a little bit of fresh cracked pepper as well. Oh, that's right where it needs to be. That's gonna be the perfect base for our osso buco. Now, no osso buco, authentic or otherwise, is complete without the Gremolata topping. This is the thing that really brightens stuff up. You see that beef or veal, no matter which one you're using, it's been in there braising for a long time with some really rich flavors. And you know what it could use to brighten everything up right there at the end? A bit of citrus, a bit of garlic, a bit of fresh herbs. So we're making our Gremolata starting with the zest of this lemon. We're gonna add to that some grated garlic, and then we'll work into that a little bit of fresh parsley. So we'll just take the delicate leaves here, leave the stems behind for this application. And since everything else is minced down so fine, we're gonna do the same thing with the parsley. There we go. Now I've kind of eyeballed this, but I'll be sure to give you guys some exact measurements for your recipe in the link. Well, we made it, guys. It's time to bring everything together. Let's start with our polenta base, get our oxtail on top, and finish it off with that beautiful Gremolata. Here's the one. Is this the one? This is the one. Feeling it. Look at that. We'll nestle that right in there. We've got a lot of fat left in our sauce here, but if we get down underneath that, we can grab some of that really tasty braising liquid. Just like a little bit of gravy for you right there on top of your oxtail. And then just that dusting with a Gremolata. Beautiful. All right, guys, let's grab a taste. Look at that, just comes right off the bone. Gonna need some of that polenta. Oh my gosh. It just falls apart. The fat just coats your mouth. So much flavor. And that tomato, it's like it's caramelized tomato on the outside. But man, that bright bite from the lemon zest on top, that pops out for sure. You know, the creamy base of the polenta almost gets lost because the oxtail itself is so impressive. That's probably a good thing. It's definitely in a supporting role there, but it all works together fantastic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.